I love games.
I love games.
And I love games too.
Normally, a lot of you know our stance on pre-orders and the used game business as a whole, but if you do indeed live in North America, this applies to you, so listen up.
Pre-order numbers are used by publishers as forecasting to predict how a game will sell. For well-known franchises like Halo and Mario, these numbers are mostly unnecessary, but with smaller games, we can use this reserve system to our advantage.
GameStop, in an exclusive partnership with Nintendo, is bringing Xenoblade Chronicles to North America. Their projections are low, and the sales of this title will have an impact on other Wii exclusives such as The Last Story, Pandora's Tower, and probably more titles on other platforms. If you want to see these games come to our region, now is your chance to show your support.
Even if you are not interested in Xenoblade Chronicles, we would like to encourage you to invest $5 on a pre-order and pick up the game on April 2nd, 2012. This will help ensure that titles such as the ones we have mentioned are localized for Western audiences.
The game is reviewing very well in Europe, and remember, you don't have to buy the game alone, as you and your friends can split the cost and share the game. It may not seem like a big deal now, but someday the game in question could be one that you really want to play.
This message is brought to you by the Gamesmen
and our friends at Nintendo-Oki.com.
Thank you.
Draw your sword, knock your arrows, and ready your spellbook. It's time for another episode of The Gamesmen. What role will you play?
Greetings, guys, gals, and guildies. Welcome to episode 68 of The Gamesmen. The Gamesmen are here to play roles. I am Lyfeliek, assuming the role of your host, and this week, yeah, I'm sober this week for a change. God, that Game of the Year show, I was in bad shape. God. So with me for this Final Fantasy XIII Cliff Notes Primer show, Hardlydan, Mr. Daniel Knappman.
Hey,
How are
man,
you, sir?
I'm freezing cold, but I'm good.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Man, I'll tell you what, we had a horrible ice storm here in southwestern Pennsylvania Friday night into Saturday morning. And I'm talking like an ice coating on your windshield as thick as the windshield itself. Oh, it was bad, man. It was bad. The strange thing is, today, it's like 60 degrees.
Nice.
This January's been insane.
Yeah.
It's been up, down.
It's been pretty mild over here, really. It's just my house with no heating is cold in the winter.
Yeah, log after log. Huh?
Yeah, I've run out of logs at the moment.
Oh, man. Dude, it took me... Let me just tell you, after that Game of the Year show last week, no kidding, I swear to you, what time did we finish up? We finished up about, 10 local time, 10 Eastern. We went to Denny's afterward, and I tried to eat something, and as I'm trying to eat something, the grease was just not agreeing with me at all, you know?
Oh, jeez, man.
And I started sucking wind. I'm like, you know? So... I get up to go to the bathroom at Denny's, and actually, I wasn't sick or any. I mean, I was ill, but I didn't end up being sick. So I came back down to the table and ate half of my stuff, and took it home. I walked in. My wife said, "Don't talk to me. Don't even talk to me." So I went back on the couch and crashed out, dude. But the great thing was the room wasn't spinning or anything, right? I wake up at 10 after 6. This is like 7 hours later, 6.5 hours later. I like fell into the wall. I was still intoxicated, man. Like, I never drink, and I had like a whole liter of that cherry vodka in those stupid drinks. Oh my God. And I do apologize, because for me to keep that show on track, I mean, I barely held it together anyway, and it you can really tell, but still, I can't believe that I kept it moving as much as I did.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a good time, and I'm impressed that by one vote, Portal 2,
Yeah.
the game of the year, and deservedly so.
Yeah, definitely.
I think.
Definitely.
You know, I mean, as far as if you're judging game of the year on craftsmanship alone,
Yeah.
I think that's the best example. You know.
Yeah, it does exactly what it set out to do.
Yeah,
executes
exactly.
it perfectly.
So what's new with you? Anything?
No, not really. My phone, which I guess I've spoken about already, playing around with that quite a lot. Played the old Kingdom of Amalur's demo. That's been about it, really.
Oh, yeah, I think we're going to get into that a little bit later. Yeah. So, for this show, what I don't know, I got a bug up my ass, and I wanted to sort of go through and make a Cliff's Notes version of Final Fantasy XIII, of the narrative. So, this way, you know, there were a lot of complaints, Dan, you know, about Final Fantasy XIII, and for the most part, I really don't think that they're sort of unwarranted, I guess.
Mm.
But I enjoyed it, and I thought it was Final Fantasy. I mean, you know, granted that it didn't adhere to the typical structure, but I think all of the trappings of the games were present in this one.
Yeah, and it was so much fun. It really was.
Well, the battle system's great, and I think it's just as great in 13 too.
Mm.
You know, little tweaks and stuff, and I kind of like, you know, okay, so you're either on one side of the fence or the other with QuickTime events, right?
Yeah.
But if you remember correctly, and I don't know if this was one of the first games to do it, but Final Fantasy VIII, you remember the Gunblade tapping the R1, you know, every time Squall would attack. Would add extra damage. So, I mean, Final Fantasy battle systems are no stranger to QuickTime events, I don't think.
No, not really.
So, this was my plan. My plan was first to go over some terminology, because if we just start telling you a story, you're going to be like, what is this? What is that? I don't even understand who did what to who, and, you know, so we'll kind of go over some terminology. We will talk a little bit about the playable characters in the game, and then go over the narrative, and I think we'll wrap up with something that's been bugging me. I sort of have a pros and cons list for Final Fantasy XIII 2 and Kingdoms of Amalur, because they are both going to be massive, massive time sinks.
Definitely.
It's not really a pros and cons list. It's more a pros and pros list. You know, but one strength of the other is obviously the weakness of the first one.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm so torn on it. And another thing that's killing me is now, like, Kmart Gamer stuff is done. So, like, the coupons are gone. So now I really have to weigh out what I want to buy, and I hate it. I hate it. Now I'm like, my feet are held to the fire. Yeah, I don't like it. Yeah. So, why don't we just go ahead and get into the terminology of Final Fantasy XIII? Dan, so like we said, if you start to tell a story and you don't explain any of the elements of that story, it's going to be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, you need a bit of a preamble to
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So here's the deal. These are some of the things that you'll need to know in order to enjoy this this retelling of the narrative of Final Fantasy XIII. So, Cocoon is a floating continent above the land of Grand Pulse, known simply as Pulse to the people of Cocoon. It's like a low-hanging moon, is what it is. So, although Cocoon has the appearance of a small planetoid, it is actually hollow, and its inhabitants live inside of the shell, making it similar in concept to a Dyson sphere. Cocoon is a futuristic paradise filled with highly advanced technology which protects it against the supposed intruders from the planet below. And I had a hard time in this game picturing how Cocoon worked.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I get the fact that it's a hollowed out sphere, but how is everything inside of that sphere, how does it exist the way that it's supposed to exist?
Yeah, it confused me as well.
Like, the only thing that I could think of was, okay, yeah, it's hollowed out, but there has to be some kind of flat plane inside of it, you know? I guess so.
Or
I don't know.
The only other way would work is if it was spinning fast enough for the centripetal force to keep everyone on the outside.
Yeah, but I don't know. It doesn't look like it.
It doesn't seem like it's spinning when you look at it from
exactly.
below.
So speaking of the planet below, Dan.
That would be Grand Pulse, which is considered the conflicting parallel of Cocoon. It's a world of natural evolution where animals and plants are free to grow to tremendous sizes. In Final Fantasy XIII, Grand Pulse features an open world design with more freestyle of gameplay, a stark contrast to the more story-driven and linear experience of Cocoon.
And Grand Pulse was kind of the 25-hour mark where it opens up, supposedly, or whatever, you know, which obviously was one of the big criticisms. But it's funny because the government of Cocoon, and I'm pretty sure you'll remember this, thought Grand Pulse to be poisonous. Yeah. Like, to their way of life.
Can't control nature.
Yeah. Living in, well, actually both of these places, because there were actually both sorts. Fal'Cie, and that's spelled FAL''CIE. They were the supernatural beings in Final Fantasy XIII. They were responsible for the creation and the maintenance of the land where the humans dwell, and indirectly govern their lives. So the Sanctum Fal'Cie treat the people of Cocoon like pets. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Sanctum being the government, and the Sanctum Fal'Cie obviously are the ones that are under the control of the Sanctum. So the Fal'Cie, and this was another thing, and I completely understand why people sort of got this confused, because there were some Fal'Cie that carried the names of summons and things like that from the other Final Fantasy games. But by the same token, the summons were a completely different thing this time.
Yeah, completely different.
Yeah. There were obviously Pulse Fal'Cie, there were Cocoon Fal'Cie, but the Cocoon Fal'Cie were basically under the control of Sanctum. So I guess it's on to the next part.
Yeah, which is the Lyfeliek, which are the humans branded by divine entities, and they're given great physical and magical power, as well as a focus to fulfill. The reward for completing a focus is not much better. For the Lyfeliek will be granted eternal life and turned into a crystal to sleep forever, and later reawakened in order to complete another focus at the will of the Fal'Cie. It's for this reason that many think of the fate of a Lyfeliek as worse than death itself.
So pretty much, a Lyfeliek is the bitch of a Fal'Cie.
Yeah.
Basically. And I know we were talking about this a little bit, in the Game of the Year show when we were talking about the demo. This stuff is kind of difficult to keep track of, and I don't know for certain, but I wouldn't think that a lot of people retain all of this stuff.
No, not at all. I know I'd completely forgotten about it all.
It was a little bit of a refresher course for me, too, to be certain, But, look, I'm a Final Fantasy guy till I die. I always was, and I always will be. But, no matter how much of a flagrant foul they can commit with the series, I'll probably still be right there. But with the Fal'Cie and the Lyfeliek, there was also a Seath, and that was spelled CIE''TH. And Seath refers specifically to the Lyfeliek who failed to complete their focus in time. Mired in eternal sorrow and regret, and robbed of all free will, Seath are damned to wander the world unliving and undying until their corrupted flesh, at least, can move no more. For Seath, there is no salvation at all. And actually, you fight some of these Seath as enemies in the game. And I guess, that's sort of an underlying motivation as well. Because apparently the L'Cie, once they're branded, have a vision of what their focus is supposed to be, but there is no, positive interpretation. It's up to the branded L'Cie, him or herself, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we better talk about the Eidolons.
Yeah.
Which are the magical creatures that are called into battle by a summoner. And the Eidolons are the name of the summons in several previous Final Fantasy games. The Nintendo DS version of Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy IX, and Final Fantasy XIII. They've also been known by names Espers, Summons, Guardian Forces, and Aeons in other installments.
Yeah, that's something that kind of throws me for a loop, that there's never been a consistent name for summons.
Yeah, you'd think they'd just pick one.
Yeah. Because I think it was, Espers in 5 or 6, maybe?
Yeah.
Summons in 7. I want to say GFs in 8 and Aeons in 10, I think. I
think that's about right.
It's crazy to think that the name Eidolon is the most common over the series, because I don't see that as being a great term.
No, I always preferred Guardian Force or Summons. I think I'd probably go for Summons, actually. It's nice and simple, and it's kind of what you do.
Yeah, I know. The very descriptive term.
Yeah.
So, like we talked about before, the Sanctum. And the Sanctum is the theocracy that controls the continent of Cocoon under the leadership of one Galenth Daisley and the guidance of the fal'Cie, which is named Eden. The Sanctum has two main military forces known as PSICOM and the Guardian Corps, which seem to consist of ordinary soldiers, monsters, automated machines, and military airships. So, the Sanctum, man, it's funny.
Pain.
Yeah, they're a pain. But the funny thing is, they're pretty much, at least the forces, the military is a puppet of Daisley and of the ideal of the Sanctum, anyway. Yeah. So, obviously, I guess it's kind of like real life, I guess.
Yeah, some kind of futuristic Nazis.
Let me on. I want to be purged.
Only Siths get purged. Sanctum staff and soldiers are exempt. Huh?
Then I quit.
Line up!
Excuse me. Hey, lady. What gives?
I volunteered.
Really? You don't look ready to go quiet into that good night.
You want quiet? You better take the next train.
Well, now I really want to see what you're up to.
I had to rescue Sarah before they transported the vestige to Pulse, and out of my reach. My only chance to save her was to join the Purge.
Okay, 6 playable characters as well in the game. So Lightning, and actually this is maybe something that people may not know, and I sort of knew but didn't really realize, I guess. Her real name is Claire Farron, and obviously she's the main protagonist of Final Fantasy XIII. It's a story in which she tries to save her younger sister Sarah, who is only to be turned into a L'Cie like her. So she fights to survive and see Sarah come out of crystal stasis, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But let me ask you this. The Eidolon that she ends up getting, the summon that she obtains is one of the classics, Odin.
Yeah.
You know, the god of lightning.
Yeah.
What did you think of the actual summons? I mean, how they were handled?
I kind of liked it. I didn't use them as often as I thought I would.
Yeah.
But I did really enjoy it at first.
At first. I thought they looked really cool, you know? And
yeah, it looked damn cool.
For the uneducated, they were more like Transformers, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, what would you say? Like Power Rangers toys or something?
Kind of. Yeah,
you
like
know?
some kind of mechanical being hybrid thing.
That is a great explanation.
Yeah, probably could have done better than that.
Yeah, you probably could have. So, the thing that blew people's minds, I think, was how, you know, you summon these Eidolons, and there is a Gestalt mode, which turns them into some form that the summoner can then ride.
Yeah.
Okay?
That was cool.
Yeah, but cool to a point, but also kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, can you even use the word weird in association with Final Fantasy? Because it's almost like a word that's understood.
I don't know. It's not what I expected. So
yeah.
Put it that way.
Definitely. And the thing is, the Gestalt mode, in order to, as in Odin's case, Odin became a horse, which lightning would then mount. But in order to sort of pull off the huge attack that you would associate normally with a summon, you had a pool of points that you could sort of burn through.
Yeah.
And then use whatever remainder you wanted on whatever the big attack would be. Which, you know, a little bit different, but I do have to give them credit for trying to do something a little different, I guess. But
I did find quite often I was pretty much just going for the big attack.
Yeah.
Later on in the game.
Yeah.
Because that's what you want it for.
Exactly.
He said he wanted to see a foul sea, so I took him to go on a tour of the Uriday Gorge plant. Thought I'd surprise him with a chocobo chick to take home, but the second I turned my back, into the energy plant he went.
Dodge! Dodge, come out here! Dodge! I know you're in here! Dodge! Where are you? Say something! Dodge! Hey, what's wrong? Dodge!
Daddy!
It's all right. You okay? You're not hurt, are you? What's that? Apparently, those post-Lassie had snuck in and tried to attack the Sanctum Fal'Cie. It did the only thing it could, and gave Dodge and Lassie to protect it. My son, he got picked by a Sanctum Fal'Cie. He's a hero. But we're post-Lassie. Dodge's enemies. Psycom showed up right after that to take custody of him. Then, it was one test after another. Even then they couldn't figure out his focus. Maybe it was look for post-Lassie, maybe it was kill him. Either way, how could a kid that young even stand a chance?
Yeah, next we've got Saz Katzroy. He's a middle-aged man with an afro.
That's a great descriptor, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of accurate, I guess.
Yeah,
but...
he is. And after his wife died 3 years prior to the events of the game, Saz looked after their 6-year-old son, Dodge, before Dodge became a Sanctum Lassie and was taken by Psycom. Saving his son is Saz's main motivation, and his Eidolon is Brynhilda.
A lot of people didn't like Saz.
I liked him. He was a nice bit of comic relief.
I kind of liked him too, man. And I loved that little baby chocobo living in his afro. It was awesome. I thought that was brilliant. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But, hey, and like I said, he's the older guy that knows it all, that's trying to tell the young kids what he's went through and trying to educate them through life experience. But Brynhilda, this is sort of a new summon, for the series. I guess a flame warrior, which I would think would take the place of Ifrit.
Yeah, I Guess so.
I don't know, man. I kind of would have just liked to see Ifrit.
Yeah.
Or Ifrit, depending on which way you're pronouncing it. But I don't know. I would have kind of liked to see that instead of Brynhildr.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a she, wasn't it?
Yeah, she, yeah.
I think so. If I remember correctly. I don't know. I'm not entirely positive, but for some reason that's sticking out in my mind. And yeah, kind of cool, but then Brynhildr turns into some kind of hot rod. Which
that was a bit strange.
Yeah, a little weird.
You're just gonna leave her?
Psycom will be here soon. If they find us, we're all dead. You think Sarah'd want that? You think you know how she feels?
If I leave her, then I'll never know. We'll be fine. I can handle anything they throw at us. No one will die. I'll protect Sarah. And Cocoon.
Snow Villiers. He was a strong character and capable at running full speed while carrying a person, stepping on metal and easily bending it. Yeah, Snow was the tough guy.
Yeah.
He was definitely the tough guy. He was determined to save his fiancée, Sarah, which obviously was Lightning's sister, so they both had sort of this shared goal.
Yeah.
From her fate as a Pulse Lassie and everyone in Cocoon. So now, Snow, his Eidolon was, and again, it's another new take on sort of an old thing, Shiva. But
no,
Shiva's sisters?
Yeah.
They were like two sort of Eidolons that combined together for a motorcycle gestalt mode. Weird, huh?
Yeah, that was, but I like playing with them.
Yeah?
They were, yeah. The thing that I guess I don't like about the Eidolons in this game is the way that, some of them turn into kind of animal forms.
Yeah.
And then you got others that turn into bikes and cars. It's like, what the hell?
I know. I mean, it is kind of odd. But Shiva was kind of, and I guess Shiva, depending on which way you pronounce it. But I'm not sure what the official pronunciation of some of these are. I should kind of look that up, I guess, at some point. But I don't know, Dan. I mean, I guess there's part of me that misses just the one summon with the big diamond dust finale. And
yeah, that was awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, did this iteration was diamond dust the big move or not?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. It's crazy. I actually did pull 13 out off the stack and dust it off the other day and threw it in and played a little bit. But to tell you the truth, I don't remember. I didn't even know if I played around with Snow. Maybe I should go back and do that.
I didn't play too much with him. I didn't really like him.
No, me either. Me either. I ended up having a crew that I kind of got comfortable with, and as I do in each one of them, and played through them. But
what's eating you? Okay, I can tell you're hung up on something. Is it the Lassie thing? It's Snow, isn't it? What happened with him?
You wouldn't understand.
You and I are partners, Hope.
My mother was killed because of him. It's his fault. And he needs to pay for it. I'm not ready yet, but I will be soon.
Next, we've got the character that I think had my favourite Eidolon, and that is Hope. S-Team. S-Time? I don't know.
I don't know. Sure.
He loses his mother during the Purge, and I did laugh when that happened.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get to that. That coined one of the greatest internet sayings going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He chose to travel with the lightning in order to become stronger and to avenge his mother's death by getting revenge on the person he holds responsible, Snow, Phileas.
Uh-huh.
And his Eidolon is Alexander. She's huge.
I know. Alexander always was incredible, though. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I will never forget Final Fantasy VIII, like, the whole castle. It was 9. The whole castle was Alexander.
Yeah. Defeating him was a bit of a pain.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. This incarnation of Alexander is just on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when I pulled the game out and threw it in the other day, and when I was playing around with the Eidolons and the different characters, slotting them into the the lead position of the party, I played around with Alexander and like sort of saved up half of my action points and just did the big attack, the big finale. And apparently it must have done over 100,000 holy damage, I guess, because I got the trophy for the Limit Breaker trophy.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, just, I don't know, just playing around. And I couldn't believe it. Wow, why couldn't I do this when I was playing originally? What made it so hard?
Yeah, knowing our luck, it's probably missing an engine.
You shouldn't be so negative.
And you shouldn't get your hopes up.
So, Oerba Dia Vanille, which is kind of a weird name. Everybody knows her as Vanille. And, yeah, she does need to be a body pillow. So, she is a mysterious young girl who carries a dark past along with a heavy burden that the others are initially unaware of. Her name actually stands for Vanille of the Dia clan, or Dia, however you pronounce that, from the village of Oerba. And Vanille, it makes me angry. It pisses me off. I'm just gonna say it right now. She does not look as young as in that game as she's supposed to be.
No.
And it makes me feel kind of creepy. But she does not look young at all.
She sounds it.
She sounds it, but no, man.
Yeah.
So I was all about some Vanille. And I think her Eidolon was another new one, which was Hecatoncheer.
Yeah.
What the heck, man?
Yeah, that was some crazy kind of augmented lizardy birdie thing.
Didn't it have like multiple arms and stuff?
Yeah.
And sort of turned into this like bipedal like Metal Gear Rex thing.
Yeah.
I guess in Gestalt mode.
It was an odd one.
I looked at it, I'm like, how do you even pronounce that? Like I couldn't even read it at first, let alone sort of comprehend what it was. But yeah, Vanille. Yummy.
So I just picturing that body pillow, what you'd do to it.
Oh, yeah.
This place, it must be an ark.
An ark? That's what they called them.
Long ago, the Falsi, who made their home on Grand Pulse, were afraid of invasion from the outside. As part of their battle preparations, they created an army of living weapons, and they stored those weapons in arks. And they hid the arks all over the world.
Everyone on Grand Pulse knew the legend.
So, this is basically a Pulse armory.
Most of us never believed it. A few people tried searching, but they never found a thing. Who'd have thought to look on Cocoon?
Okay, and the final character is Oerba Young Fang. She's described as a strong woman with many mysteries surrounding her. Driven by her personal agenda, Fang aims to complete her focus in hopes of saving her friend. Her full name stands for Fang of the Young clan, from the village of Oerba, and her Eidolon is Bahamut.
Bahamut.
Yes.
Yeah. Bahamut was pretty awesome, actually, too, in this one. Yeah, I mean, albeit a lot smaller in scale and stature than normal. But Fang was the character in the branding, I think, before the game come out. I was like, man, I know that she's kind of digital, but she's kind of hot. Yeah, I know. I hate to. I shouldn't even admit that, but
I'll have to send you my postcard from the collector's edition. You can have Vanilla and Fang sitting.
Yeah. What did Bahamut change into in Gestalt?
It was some kind of
I guess he was kind of like a bird-like kind of thing.
Dragon-y.
Yeah.
Metallic monstery thing.
Yeah, which obviously she'd ride, but I don't know. I never wanted to even get Bahamut to that point because he looked so kick-ass just standing there fighting,
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that's about as primary as we can get until we get to the actual story. So Chapter 1, the game begins as, Lightning and Saz are held aboard a military purge train, along with a group of civilians destined for exile. In a stark contrast to the uncertain and despairing people around her, Lightning appears to be determined and focused. She seizes upon an instant of inattention to disable a guard, and her impressive display inspires Saz and the other civilians to take up arms against the soldiers. Dan, the funny thing is, you don't realize this at the time, but, most of the civilians are dressed in sort of robes, I guess, with hoods up over, and one is Vanille and another is Hope.
Yeah.
But at this point, I guess they're in the area called the Hanging Edge, and the Hanging Edge is a place that I guess they're trying to, and we're going to get into this, they're trying to transport a Pulse Fal'Cie, which is supposedly, I guess, the reason that all of these people are supposedly needing purging. But see, this was kind of something in the beginning of this game, and I think that the aesthetic was not so much a direct tribute, but sort of paid homage to Final Fantasy VII. And the beginning part of the game where it's just Lightning and Saz after the train, as they're out of the train.
Yeah. With that
first little boss, and he's not really a little boss, he's actually pretty big. The Manasvin war mech has the sort of saw blades on its arms, like on the front appendages, and a tail. Did it kind of remind you of anything?
It is kind of like the kind of first boss in Final Fantasy VII. Mm-hmm. Quite similar.
Yeah, the guard scorpion, I think, was what that was.
Yeah, that's the chap.
Obviously he was red and this thing's white, but I remember the guard scorpion being so annoyed. I'm like, I can't figure it out. And then it was, his tail's up, his tail's down.
Yeah.
when the tail's up, don't attack, and that stuff. And that would have been kind of neat. I was actually kind of expecting that with the war mech. There's a lot, I think, in the beginning here that is, like I said, sort of tribute to Final Fantasy VII. The colors, the greens, I think in particular.
Yeah, there's a very similar kind of color map.
So, the Purge is a Sanctum initiative, like we said, designed to protect the stability of Cocoon by forcing potentially dangerous civilians to relocate to Pulse. Suspect citizens of Cocoon are wrenched from their tranquil existence and threatened with exile to the world below. Realizing that Purge is nothing more than a massacre in disguise, Snow Villiers leads the young freedom fighters of Nora. He calls them Nora, which actually stands for no obligations, rules, or authority. And that's pretty Japanese there.
Yeah.
In an effort to protect the Purge deportees from the Sanctum soldiers. And throughout this whole, first sequence, which is in essence like a, I guess a glorified tutorial, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Some might say that the first 20 hours are a glorified tutorial, but it's funny because it doesn't take long to sort of get into the mindset of Final Fantasy, because one of the first enemies that you fight is a behemoth.
Yeah.
Which normally you wouldn't come across until, maybe 40 hours into one of the games. I don't know, and it's a beta behemoth, and they do sort of show up, a little bit more throughout the game than other installments. So, tragically, one of the civilians who decides to follow him, hoping to protect her son, dies in the act of saving Snow's life. And, it shouldn't even be a laughable thing that this chick dies. Obviously, she's not real, but the reason it's laughable is that Snow, without really training anyone to use a gun, he just starts handing guns out. And this chick takes a gun, and he says a few things to her, and she says the internet meme, "Moms are tough." And apparently moms were real tough, because she was dead probably about 10 minutes after.
Yeah.
And obviously, the son in question is Hope.
Yeah.
S-Time. And like we said, 2 days prior, it was discovered that a vestige housed a long-dormant pulse file C, hence the fear that it contaminated the residents of Cocoon. So Lightning cuts her way through this battlefield, doggedly followed by the desperate Saz. Snow, meanwhile, seeks to rescue his fiancée, obviously Sarah, like we said earlier, who is Lightning's sister, and she's become a Lassie. A boy spurred on by dreams of revenge pursues Snow with the help of an unusual young lady, being Vanille. Though driven all by their separate goals, their path all lead to the same end, the Pulse File C.
Okay, Chapter 2. Now, in his single-minded pursuit of Snow, because of his mother's death, Hope has rushed into the lair of the Foul Sea, and is now only recalling the terrible nature of the being that lurks within. The Pulse entity could use its power to curse them, to turn them into Lassie. A legend on Cocoon states that if the Lassie completes the focus given by Foul Sea, they turn into a crystal and gain eternal life. Yeah, it's a crystal. And just as the legend describes, Sarah glows with an incredible light and turns into crystal. But has she truly gained eternal life? And what focus has she completed? Her final request was for the party to save Cocoon. Now, despite unanswered pleas, they work together to bring down the Foul Sea. Anima?
Yeah, you know what? That was kind of neat. As soon as I saw it, I thought about the Anima summon obviously from Final Fantasy X.
See, I didn't play 10.
Oh, man. So you're going to have to buy a $250 Vita and play the remake. Yeah, probably not. But yeah, Anima was really cool. It was like this huge bound, like, demonic thing that would, grab enemies and pull them below the surface into hell.
Cool.
Really cool, like chained up and man, Anima was awesome. And I was really, as soon as I saw that I remember pre-ordering the game, and when you pre-order the game, at least over here, you got a little mini strategy guide.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the mini version of the piggyback, the big piggyback one.
Yeah.
And I was kind of looking through it because, obviously I'm like shaking like a crackhead to play some Final Fantasy. And I'm looking through it and I see that picture and it really didn't say anything. But I'm like, oh my God, that looks like Anima. And, and then all of a sudden from that point, I'm like, oh, I need this now. I need it now. But yeah, so go ahead. It was a stupid aside, but
no, that's cool. The vestige, now plummets towards the lake below, but not before it sears cursed brands onto their minds. The vision of the beast destroying Cocoon, which looks quite like Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
A final wave of power explodes from the dying Foul Sea, transforming the water and surrounding the area into solid crystal.
Yeah, and that was another thing that was kind of hard to sort of, I guess, get your bearings on.
Yeah.
And it was weird because I guess through that whole hanging edge area, they were trying to sort of transport this vestige.
Yeah.
So as it crashes, which brings about Chapter 3, the group awakens directly under the hanging edge, like we said, on the expanse of a solidified Lake Brescia. So, the cool thing about this was it was all environments of like waves that were moving and just, in an instant were crystallized. It was kind of awesome. So now that they are pulseless, Lightning and the others try to figure out what their focus could be. They eventually find the crystallized Sarah, and Snow refuses to press on, so he stays behind. Brought to his knees by wave after wave of PSICOM soldiers during a protracted battle, the desperate young man is suddenly overcome by a strange phenomenon. The twin sisters of Shiva, like we said, Styria and Nyx, appear before him in a flash of blinding light. They easily dispatch the remaining troops, then turn on Snow. He manages to defeat the icy Eidolons, but is soon captured by an unfamiliar Sanctum unit. A striking woman accompanies the soldiers, a woman with a Lassie brand, which we come to find out a little bit later is Fang, together with Cid Raines, which obviously there's always a Cid in Final Fantasy games, No. So meanwhile, try as they might, Lightning's group cannot shake their determined pursuers. They defeat a giant Garuda, which is another sort of staple of the Final Fantasy series, like a big flying bird. Then they commandeer an airship, which is soon crippled by enemy fire, and it plummets toward the ground. This is kind of the place where the characters sort of split up.
Yeah.
Sort of Lightning and Hope, and then Vanille and Saz. After this. The four of them are together at this point, but then they start to split up in Chapter 4.
Their airship damaged during the escape from the army, the Lyfeliek are forced to make a crash landing in the Vile Peaks. Lightning immediately sets off to outdistance any pursuit, trailed by Hope, and despite the futility of the situation, Saz cannot just leave Vanille behind to fend for herself, so the group splits yet again. Hope and Lightning travel to Palampolum, while Saz and Vanille travel to Nautilus, the city of dreams.
Nautilus, I don't know if you remember this, but Nautilus reminded me a lot of sort of the Golden Saucer from Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Nautilus is sort of like this Las Vegas-y, you know, it is definitely a tourist trap.
Yeah. The Nautilus Park, and I enjoyed wandering around there. It was
yeah, Nautilus was fun.
It was great.
Yeah, and I think that the neatest thing that I found about Nautilus was the big parade, sort of, that they had. I think it was the Pompa Sancta. And that was sort of like Eidolons on parade, as it were. You know? But there were some neat ones there that sort of didn't show up in the actual game. That like they threw out little discs, and Vanille catches a disc in the one of the cutscenes, and it sort of a hologram of Carbuncle pops out. You know? And I guess there was Siren was in there, Ramu, and there was actually a visual reference to Ragnarok, and I think Valifor, I want to say, which was one of the summons from Final Fantasy X. I can't remember if it was in another one, but I really thought Nautilus was awesome. You know, like, it was one of those moments, and this is exactly why, the sort of Eidolon parade. I thought that cutscene really sort of propelled me forward, you know, seeing some old friends that I've seen years ago. Yeah. You know, as it were. So, in Chapter 5, in Lightning's scenario, she unintentionally supports Hope's goal of killing Snow as revenge for his mother's death, because I don't think that he's being clear and talking about the parties involved and things like that. But in Vanille's scenario, Saz discusses how his son Dodge was turned into a Lyfeliek by a cocoon fal'Cie and was taken by Psycom to discover his focus.
I'm going to skip through a few here. We've got chapters 6, 7, and 8 kind of in one paragraph. And at Palampolum, Lightning tries to persuade Hope not to go through with his revenge and meets Snow and Fang. Fang reveals that she and Vanille were Lyfeliek from Pulse who were turned into crystals. They were turned back into humans 13 days prior to the start of the game, sparking the purge.
See?
Yeah.
So yeah, it all comes out that those two were responsible for the purge, which, you know, there is a whole 13 days thing that is sort of an addendum to the game, you know, starting whenever, you know, obviously when that happened, when that started. And it's kind of neat. I'm sort of reading through it, and I think it's part of the actually in-game information that the game supplies to you. But it really helps to flesh out a good bit, I think. I mean, if you're invested in the narrative, you know, I mean, yeah, that's the prerequisite.
Yeah, and if you're playing Final Fantasy and they're not invested in the narrative, you probably shouldn't be playing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, even though it can lose you pretty easily.
Well, that's true, but it's always worth kind of trying to hang it. It all gets explained kind of at the end, doesn't it? Like most Final Fantasies, you're like, what? There we go. Hope attempts to murder Snow, but after Snow saves him from an airstrike, he decides not to go through with it. The party then escapes with Cid's aid. At Nautilus, Vanille reveals herself to Saz as a Lyfeliek from Pulse, and indirectly the reason that his son, Dodge, was turned into a Lyfeliek.
Yeah. It was sort of at a power station or something, I remember. And what was the fal'Cie was Titan, I want to say?
I can't remember.
Maybe? So, yeah, they sort of decide to go against... and I'm pretty sure it's Titan. They decide to go against this fal'Cie, and in essence, they sort of wake it up, and it brands Dodge, and he becomes a Lyfeliek.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point where Saz, like, flips out and defeats Brynhildr, and you know that's where he sort of gets his Eidolon at that point.
Psycom then catches Saz and Vanille and detains them on board the airship Palamecia,
which I'd like to say I think isn't it the name of a town or something from an older Final Fantasy? I think.
Yeah, I think it might be actually.
I'm not entirely sure, but it rings a bell for some reason. Chapter 9 brings us a little revelation on Gallant Daisley, the Primarch of Cocoon.
The Foul Sea running the Sanctum.
Then, I guess it wasn't Eden controlling things after all.
As I said, I am Lord Sovereign.
Guess Foul Sea don't go down as easy as the rest of us.
Ease is not the issue. You have not fought to win. You should know quite well already the sure way of dispatching our kind. Ragnarok.
What's Ragnarok?
Pitiful to see. Ragnarok is the beast one of you must become in order to lay waste to Cocoon. You have had the dream. One among you will become that monstrosity. Defeat Orphan and destroy Cocoon.
Orphan?
The font of Eden's power. Orphan fuels Eden with strength. And Eden, in turn, sustains you and the rest of our kind. Destroy Orphan, and you'll release a force such as this world has never seen. Cocoon will be torn asunder.
So if I did that, destroyed Orphan?
Your focus will be fulfilled.
So what? Who says it has to be?
Sarah asked us to save Cocoon before she turned to Crystal. Save it! And that's what we're gonna do. Sarah was trying to tell us how to complete our focus, and we have...
Allow me to help you see the truth of things. The moment you arrived, your friend wept crystal tears. This was because her focus required that you be brought together. That girl did nothing but assemble the tools for Cocoon's destruction. did you simply refuse to countenance the thought?
All right, chapters 10 and 11, and that's kind of what we tried to do here, was condense these down a bit. And obviously you may not be getting the complete narrative, but you're getting a pretty good idea of the events that occurred in Final Fantasy XIII.
Completely ruin it, do we?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of like ruined here already. But So the other members of the party stage a rescue mission and reunite with Vanille and Saz before they confront Galenth Daisley, who is the Sanctum's Primarch, like we said before. Daisley reveals himself as the Cocoon Fal'Cie ruler, Bartandalus. Yeah. Chapter 10 was where that happened, and out of 13 chapters, that's kind of late for that.
Yeah.
I mean, normally in typical Final Fantasy sort of structure, there's the the whole 3-act thing, where, the big bad guy's revealed at the end of the first act. Then the whole second act is something that seems completely unrelated, but then by the third act, it has everything to do with the guy that you confronted in the first act.
Yeah.
So, but he tells them that their focus is to transform into the beast Ragnarok and slay the sleeping Fal'Cie Orphan, who keeps Cocoon afloat above Pulse. Slaying the Fal'Cie Orphan will result in the destruction of Cocoon. So here, this is in direct confrontation to the focus of Sarah.
Yeah.
So the party then escapes and learns from Cid that the Fal'Cie believe that Cocoon's destruction will summon the Maker, the creator of worlds. The Fal'Cie cannot harm Orphan themselves. So Vanille and Fang reveal to the party that they were involved in the War of Transgression centuries prior, and that their focus then had been the same, to transform into Ragnarok and attempt to destroy Orphan. The party flies away to Pulse and travels to Oerba, Vanille and Fang's hometown, where they hope to learn how to remove their l'Cie marks. They are unsuccessful, and Daisley confronts the group once again. And I want to say that when they got to Oerba, wasn't it just nothing but dirt and dust? And
yeah.
I don't think there was anything there at all.
I think there was a few buildings, but that was about it, wasn't it? There wasn't much there.
But it was sort of the remains of a society,
Yeah, they just kind of evacuated.
So like we said, they are unsuccessful, and Daisley confronts the group again. He tells them that he is forcing Cid, who now has become the puppet head of the Sanctum, to create chaos in Cocoon to force the cavalry to attack Cid and Orphan in a coup d'etat. So, Cid Raines reveals the horrendous truth of the Fal'Cie's agenda. The divinity responsible for creating both Fal'Cie and humans, known only as the Maker, departed long ago, leaving the world to fall into ruin. To save it, the Maker must return, but to call back the Maker, millions of lives, which is no less than the entire population of Cocoon, must be sacrificed. Thus, the Sanctum Fal'Cie carefully nurture the people within their floating shell in preparation for this bloody tribute. Yet, unable to unmake that which they themselves have made, the Fal'Cie have long sought suitable tools to carry out Cocoon's destruction. The Pulse l'Cie, in short, have been surreptitiously watched and protected so that they might gain the strength necessary to complete their focus. Raines, the bearer of this awful truth, reveals himself to be a l'Cie under the control of Bartandalus. So Bartandalus had branded Raines at this point, which, I don't know, you could kind of see that coming.
Yeah.
Once he reveals that Bartandalus reveals he's a Fal'Cie. But, kind of cool for there just to be sort of this mirror image thing going on the evil side, as opposed to the, what you're led to believe is the good side. So far, he has guided Lightning and her friends as his focus required, but now he chooses to exercise his final shred of free will in an act of rebellion against the Fal'Cie. If he can kill the Pulse l'Cie, then Cocoon will escape destruction. His last wish as a human is to fight for the survival of his world. Even in defeat, he turns to Crystal and gains his eternal reward. So, even though he turns to Crystal, he kind of doesn't return to Crystal for too long, does he?
No. Just hearing that name, Bartandalus, or whatever it's pronounced, that just reminded me of. It's the one place I actually had a bit of trouble in the game.
Yeah.
Until I figured out how to defeat him, obviously. But yeah, he was a pain.
Yeah. Yeah, to say the least, man. In all honesty, there were a good bit of, I guess, boss battles.
Yeah.
You know, not so much the randoms, but there were a bitch.
Yeah, it took me. I had to put down the game and stop playing it for a while just so I could calm down and try to figure it out. And I thought, oh yeah, I've got the guide.
Yeah, I know. I actually bought the guide too. Yeah, I did, and I'm sort of glad I did. I mean, every other time I'm that guy who's like, nah, I ain't playing with it. So, but this time I'm kind of glad I did.
That's not what you said a year ago.
I know. Oh, well.
Okay, on to chapter 12.
Oh, man. Good. This is like my favorite part of the game. Good.
Do you want to do this bit?
Nope. I mean, I feel like I've been talking like 10 times more than you have, so good.
Okay. Lightning and her friends return to Cocoon, only to be greeted by the sudden appearance of an army of mechanical monsters and gigantic beasts.
Oh, I gotta stop you right there. I gotta talk some more. This cutscene was awesome!
It was, wasn't it?
Oh, it was so good! You know, where all 6 of the party members come back to Cocoon in this sort of triumphant, just kamikaze sort of suicide mission, you know? And they're all riding their Eidolons, and you know, they're transforming back and forth from Gestalt mode, and they're flinging the occupants around, and it was just awesome. If you have no idea, you need to look it up on YouTube. You got to see it. It's incredible. Yeah. It is incredible.
If you have no idea, you should actually just pick up the game and play it.
Yeah, but that's about 50 hours. So
true, but it'll be cheap now.
Yeah, you can get it for a song.
The Fal'Cie have activated the Ark hidden beneath the capital, releasing an army of Pulsian terrors into the city. Reigns calmly welcomes his own demise and is killed by his former captain. Revived to serve as the Primarch of Cocoon and Barthandelus's pawn, he nevertheless retains a sliver of the will he possesses as a human, and it is humans who must decide Cocoon's future, not the Fal'Cie's slaves. Now, I loved this whole chapter.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was fantastic. Just the kind of change in the colours, and you really felt like you were somewhere else, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was kind of neat too. I thought that the weirdest thing, like you said, the Fal'Cie activated the Ark, beneath the capital, which sort of opened up like time gates, or not actually time gates, but they were sort of vortexes to Grand Pulse, and that's what happened. All of the Grand Pulse like wildlife started to rush, the whole of Cocoon, which was kind of weird, man, to see the huge like adamantoids, the giant adamantoids that sort of look like a cross between like a woolly mammoth and a goddamn AT-AT from Star Wars.
Yeah, the first time you see them, it's like, wow.
I still don't think I ever killed one. I don't think I ever did.
No, I haven't yet. I guess there's an achievement for that, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I took some of the lesser ones down, but anyway, the party encounters Daisley and overpowers him, but Orphan awakes and merges with Daisley, then compels Fang to finish her focus as Ragnarok, whilst the others are seemingly transformed into Seath instead. Fang's transformation is stopped prematurely, and the group targets Orphan itself.
Come on. We've got a world to save.
If we have the power to destroy Cocoon, then we have the power to save it. You say you want your day of wrath, do ya? Well, it's coming right up!
Time we gave the people what they really want.
We can do it. I know we can. We made it this far.
Right.
Let's make a real miracle happen.
Lady Luck sure ain't on his side.
we overreach you.
Is that so?
You don't believe in anything. You gave up on life before you were even born. Sat poisoning Cocoon from the inside, waiting for someone to come and destroy you. Sure, you think the end of the world is salvation. All you care about is death's release. So take it, and leave the rest of us alone. We don't think like that. When we think there's no hope left, we keep looking until we find some. Maybe Cocoon is past saving, but it's our home, and we'll protect it or die trying! We live to make the impossible possible! That is our focus!
And in Chapter 13, the party engages and defeats Orphan and escape Cocoon, which is now falling toward Pulse. As they defeat Orphan, the coolest part of this story was the admission by Orphan, because, Bartandalus is there, so the party sort of defeats Bartandalus, then Bartandalus merges with Orphan, if you remember correctly. And they defeat that. So it's sort of like the 3-stage final boss thing that's in like every Final Fantasy, Yeah. So they defeat that thing, and then the pure Orphan form, rises from that. So there's this little bit of information that is divulged at that point that said that there's a reason that the fal'Cie have to take l'Cie the way that they do, and it's because humans were created to be stronger than the fal'Cie. It was just a realization that these supposed supernatural beings have a finite limit to their power, and that the human race, both created by the Maker, the human race is actually superior, as far as limits and being able to push limits.
Yeah.
As the rest of the party turns to Crystal for completing their focus, Vanille and Fang remain on Cocoon and transform into Ragnarok together. So it's kind of funny that was their original focus, and they become Ragnarok together, and prevent a collision between Cocoon and Pulse by turning themselves into a crystal pillar between the two worlds. There is so much foreshadowing that is in the logo alone.
Yeah.
Of the game. And the logo of the game, in sort of this epiphany, is the crystallized version of Cocoon.
It's almost like a massive spoiler.
Yeah, it is, and it's right there from the beginning, from the time you buy the game.
Until you either listen to this or get to the end of the game.
yeah, but really cool. So the rest of the party has been, apparently crystallized because they've completed their focus, but they awaken from their crystallization on Pulse and find their l'Cie brands to be gone. And the game ends with Lightning and Snow reuniting with Sarah and Saz reuniting with Dodge. So, it was, I don't know, Dan, was it too much of a feel-good ending? I sort of had that, I don't know if I cared, but there was, in the back of my mind, it's like, really?
Yeah. But it kind of wasn't really the ending for me, was it? Or for anyone, because you could go back and...
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a bit kind of twee and kind of cheesy.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, like I said, I didn't really mind it, but...
No, I just, I was just... By the time I'd got there, I was just so happy to have played the entire game through, and I did it in several very long sittings, and I loved it. It was well worth the money. I've just talked myself into getting 13 too.
And speaking of the premise for 13.2, I was kind of looking this up the other day, and because playing the demo, it really doesn't give you a clear definition of what the premise is for the game. It's just a vertical slice that takes place, I guess, somewhat past the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, okay, well, I get that. Like, there was such this sense of dire emergency in the beginning of 13, like, exactly what's going on. You're on that train. You're on a train full of slaves. Obviously, they're prisoners or whatever. And you know what you have to do. And in this one, I'm like, okay, I don't really get it. But supposedly it's set several years after Lightning and the others saved Cocoon, like we just talked about. Some survivors have decided to start over by rebuilding on Grand Pulse. So apparently the fear of Grand Pulse has ended. Lightning, however, is nowhere to be found and thought to be dead by many, but Sarah believes otherwise. When her town is suddenly overrun by monsters, a mysterious man named Noel appears to save her. Together, the two set off to find Lightning. Does that interest you anymore?
No, but the fact is, I know I'm going to enjoy it so much.
Well, I mean, at least there's some kind of clear goal, I guess. Yeah. I had no idea what that was. But here's the thing. I already know I'm going to pick up 13.2. I mean, hell, I've already pre-ordered it. But I'm sort of wrestling with myself on a bit of another topic.
Hey there, Gamesmen. It's Murphy's Law. And, hey, I was calling to, one, check out the new fancy phone line, and two, give my quick thoughts on Kingdom of Amalur, the Reckoning. Kingdom of Amalur's Reckoning. I think it's pretty good. I'm enjoying it so far. Certainly is not a completely polished experience yet. There definitely are some graphical hitches here and there. Noticed a couple instances where just things don't quite sync up correctly the way they should. But on a whole, I think I've enjoyed it enough, certainly that it's going to be something I get. But I was just curious to hear your thoughts on the combat, which I know, Steve, in our conversations you said you thought it reminded you a little bit of Guild Wars. My thoughts are, this combat reminds me an awful lot of Fable. Especially Fable 2 and even maybe Fable 3 to a degree, but particularly Fable 2. So just kind of curious, what you guys thought of that? Simplistic, yet it starts to build some depth into the combat play, so the button mashing becomes purposeful. But anyway, that's it. Hope you guys have a great show. Talk to you soon.
Okay, so what is it you're thinking about too much this time?
Well, I mean, you know me, that's what I always do. All the time. Obviously, 13.2 comes out on the 31st over here. I'm not sure. Is it the same day over there, or is it that following Friday?
I think it's going to be the Friday.
Okay.
Yes, February the 3rd.
The 3rd, okay. So, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning comes out on the 7th.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been building like a pros and cons type of list, or like I said before, a pros and pros list. And they're both just going to be incredibly time intensive.
Yeah.
But I know you've played the demo, so tell me a little bit about it from your point of view and sell me or, sort of warn me away.
Well, the first thing when I first started playing it, with the narrative that starts on the Kingdom of Amalur's demo, it seemed really like Lord of the Rings. The start of the film with the narrative, and then I started playing it, and it just seemed so much like Fable to me. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I really enjoyed it. It looks nice. It runs well on my PC. I think that's what I'll play it on if I pick it up. It seems like there's a good story in there. I haven't really touched a huge amount of it yet, but it definitely seems like it's one to look at. Whether or not, I don't know. Can I say get that instead of Final Fantasy XIII too? That's a tough one.
Well, this has been my thinking. Okay, so see if you can follow me along with this. In the Final Fantasy checkbox, there is going to be super polished experience.
Yeah.
Whereas the Amalur demo has locked up on every platform I've played it on, like hard locked.
Oh dear.
I mean, I don't know your experience, but that thing has been glitchy.
It's been absolutely fine on my rig.
Really?
Yeah. I know. Bobby had issues with none of the world rendering, and it was just all black.
Yeah. See, I've had to the point where I've went inside buildings and come back out, and sort of in a crescent wedge outward, there has been like nothing. No textures mapping, no nothing.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's weird. And I played it on the PS3 at first, and then I figured, in order to have great synergy, I was going to eventually maybe pick it up on the 360. Because of my, the intertwining with Mass Effect.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm invested on, with Mass Effect on the 360. Here's the other thing. I've been burned once by Skyrim on the PS3, and I'm still kind of waiting for that to get patched out and really to kind of sit down and dig my heels in. And I really don't want that to happen with Amalur.
No, I mean, I'd suggest, if you were going to pick it up, go for it on the PC, because it's going to get patched quicker.
So, like, I've had heads not show up, like the guy who actually, I don't even know who the sort of gnome or whatever he is that created the Well of Souls.
Yeah.
His head just didn't show up. He was headless. and I mean, it kind of worries me.
Yeah. Well, they always do say that the demos are no representation of the final release product, but you'd expect
yeah, but I mean,
basic things to work, like, I don't know, people's heads.
I mean, and I sit there and think, okay, yeah, this is Ken Ralston. This is the guy who was, one of the leads on Oblivion and Morrowind. And Bethesda games are glitchy as hell too.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't want to go through that. But I also don't want to wait to play it because I know I won't.
Yeah. I think you're going to have to, if I were you, I'd put aside the armor, which is basically what you're getting for Mass Effect 3 in it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think you unlock some armor and some other stuff.
Yeah, there's a few things, yeah.
Yeah, but it's nothing's going to be really game-changing, I imagine.
No.
I've always found that whenever you get free stuff like that, you always end up finding better stuff in the game anyway. So, yeah, I'd go for the PC version, man.
Well, here's the other thing. And obviously I said I've been overthinking everything.
Yeah.
The Amalur MMO is in development now.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer that this Kingdom of Amalur Reckoning game is just sort of a, like we're doing a primer for 13. I think it's a primer.
To get people invested in the world and into the lore.
So, like, if I buy Amalur and I really like the world of Amalur, then there's no more single-player games for me to play in that world. But then again, I'm always the guy who says, oh, we need more new IP and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd be sort of a hypocrite to not support it. What do I do, Dan? What do I do?
Ask for a raise and get both.
Well, like I said, now that Kmart Gaming is kind of gone, I have sort of put my stock on the Amazon train.
Right.
And it doesn't seem that there's as many good Amazon gift cards as there used to be. Like, I'm getting a $10 with Final Fantasy XIII too.
See, we don't get any of that over here, so you think yourself lucky.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, dude, I'm spoiled. $20 coupons on everything. It was great. It was great while it lasted, I guess. But
I mean, the closest thing I've got is with Game. I get reward points every time I spend something. I've got 1,500 reward points, which gives me £3.75 off my next purchase.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, those customer loyalty programs are just like garbage. They're like next to useless.
It has helped me out now and then.
Yeah.
I got a free Xbox bag with my points. That was kind of cool because I needed it because I was traveling 300 miles with my Xbox and I didn't want to just put it in a carrier bag. So I got one of those official padded jobs. It's really good quality. It's looking a bit grey now, though. That's the only problem with it. It's white, isn't it?
God. So, I mean, how'd you find the combat in Amalur?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It felt really fluid on the PC. I'm going to try it on the 360 as well, just so I can see which one looks better. I might end up picking it up on the 360.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it seemed like, I don't know, it seems like they've released that demo too early. They haven't really done enough work, which is a bit scary considering it's coming out very soon.
Well, I mean, there is that sort of disclaimer at the beginning where you can opt in to, give them information about how you play it.
Yeah.
So I hope my lockups went to them,
Yeah.
But I'm also tired of day one patches.
Yeah, there was a time when you'd be able to buy a game and it would be complete.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this game's gone gold yet. I have no idea. I mean, it could be that they're taking the information and then pressing the discs, but I mean, we're getting to the point that's kind of crunch time, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, unless it's an old demo.
Yeah. I mean, it could be an old build. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I hope it is.
So you can see that I'm going back and forth on Amalur, and, I should just buy both, but, I know I'm going to get this experience with 13.2. And, it supposedly remedied all of the, the faults or flaws that were inherent in 13. And man, there's it's crazy. Like, I'll hear somebody talk about, Amalur on a podcast or, somewhere, and they're like, oh, it's glitchy. I'm not digging it. I'm like, yeah, that's right. It's like validating me not to buy it. And then I listened to Ken Ralston on every podcast, on the earth, like last week that he was on talking about it, and he makes it sound incredible.
It does seem like it could be. I mean, there's a huge amount of lore in the game, and the combat is fantastic. It's a tough one.
I don't know. I guess what I really have to get through and figure out is, can a Western RPG and a JRPG exist in my sort of inventory at the same time?
Yeah, of course they can.
This is the year of RPGs, though, man.
Oh, yeah, and I love it. I love RPGs.
Wow.
They're my favorite genre.
And like I said, I haven't even really... I mean, I've gotten about 25 hours or so into Skyrim, but I kind of stopped because of the whole, the memory leak thing.
Yeah, you got that on the wrong system, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I also didn't have my home theater PC at that point either. So, and, like the PSA at the beginning of the show... for Xenoblade Chronicles, we got Mass Effect 3.
Yeah.
It is just going to be like RPG City. And I think that there's going to be enough to carry through until the fall.
Definitely. I'm going with Mass Effect 3. I'm trying not to get excited about that game.
I know. I mean, you know my name for it, Mass Appeal 3.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that it's going to completely become a shooter and cease to be an RPG at all. But
got to finish that story, though.
Yeah, I know. I know. All right, Dan, we probably ought to wrap this thing up. So, any shout outs and web for the week to come?
Yeah, shout outs to Bobby over at Iron Hammers, and web for the week to come. That's basically Iron Hammers. I'll be on that show every Sunday, 10 o'clock GMT. I think that's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
It'd be great if we get some people coming over to listen. It's always a good fun show. And it's not all just PC talk. There's a lot of kind of cross-platform stuff out there that we talk about. So,
and that's always just a bad time for me. So I always try to send an email in.
Yeah. You can find me basically if you type in Hardlydan to Steam, Raptor, Xbox Live, pretty much anything. That'll be me. So nice and easy one there. How can we get hold of you, Steve?
I am JSSLIFELIKE pretty much everywhere. That's PSN, that's Xbox Live, that's Steam, that's Skype, that's Twitter, whatever. That's the easy way. That's the way things should be done, Dan.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. But I do want to say that for next show, and Dan, this includes you, finish Bastion. We're going to spoil Bastion. And talk a bit about it, because I love the way that Bastion affected me. I had a blast with it. Also, we're going to kind of piggyback off of this whole JRPG thing this week for the next show. We're going to have a topic, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to have Mr. Greg DeLacy, Murphy's Law, on next show. And we're going to discuss what killed the JRPG, because obviously it's clawing and trying to stay afloat. But I have an idea of my own, as I'm sure you do and everybody else does. And, let's try something new. Try the voicemail line, the RPG line, at 412-267-7741 or RPG1. Leave us a voicemail and we'll get it on the show regarding the death of JRPGs. I think that's about it. I was trying to think about shout-outs this week, and, man, I just really can't think of anything. Except for, you know what? I gotta shout out Mikey Yo for, refusing to let me drive my own truck home from from the Game of the Year show, because there was no way. I was sitting there thinking, yeah, if I just kind of sit around a little bit and kind of get to feel better, I think I'll be okay. And
jeez, man.
Yeah, no, no. Oh God, that whole night's a blur.
If you want to get a hold of the show, you can email us at thegamesmanrpg@gmail.com. And you can find us on Twitter at thegamesmanrpg.
Let's put a bow on this thing. Dan, thank you. And I bet this thing was probably about as much of a refresher for you as it was for me.
Oh, God, yeah. I'd forgotten so much.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of pumped because there's no way I'm playing through 50 hours again. to do that. And even though the rundown was not perfect, it was nonetheless effective. So
yeah.
All right, so that's it. On behalf of Dan, Hardlydan, Knapman, I am Lyfeliek, we are the Gamesmen, and until next time, we ask,
what role will you play?
Not fully satisfied with this podcast, please return any portions for a full review.
Moogles do not look like Jim Jim!